My name is Frank Curry.
Okay. And Frank, how old are you now?
When I joined Ringling, Irvin Feld asked me that question. Well, actually not when I joined, but he asked me one day, and I said, Irvin, I'll tell you my age if you will tell me your age. And that was the end of the questioning. And truth be known, I was so young when I went to work for Ringling Brothers that I didn't want Irvin or anybody to know how young, because they probably couldn't realize that someone as young as I was had accomplished as much as I had prior to Irvin convincing me to join Ringling.
Okay. And where do you live?
I live in Nashville, Tennessee, but I was born and raised in New York City, Midtown Manhattan.
Okay. Have you had any nicknames as an adult?
Yeah, when I was a rodeo clown for 11 years, once it got out that I was actually from New York City and not Texas or Montana where I was working, I thought I would capitalize on that, and they nicknamed me the Manhattan Matador.
Well, just for clarification, where were you born?
New York City, Lenox Hill Hospital, 76th and Park.
Okay. Would you describe your family as growing up poor, middle class, upper class, wealthy?
Comfortable.
Comfortable. I describe my family as
comfortable.
Okay. What was your father's occupation?
He was an attorney.
Okay. So your father was an attorney?
Correct.
Okay. And what was your mother's occupation?
My mother, God rest her soul, and God rest my father's soul, my mom was a homemaker.
Okay.
A housewife and a mother.
Frank, what schools did you attend growing up, and where were they located?
In Manhattan, St. Lawrence Grammar School, Loyola High School, and then in Worcester, Mass, Holy Cross College, and back in New York City, Columbia University.
And how many years of education did you complete?
Since I did a lot of it during my rodeo off season, I would say 15 if you added it all up.
Okay. Do you have any college degrees or certifications?
Specifically what?
Did you have a graduate degree or a postgraduate degree or a bachelor's degree?
No, I had 3 years, and the fourth year kept getting interrupted as my rodeo season got longer and longer, so I never completed the fourth year.
Okay. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? What did you think you wanted to be? And start out as a child for me.
I was a rink rat at the old Madison Square Garden at 49th Street and 8th Avenue, and I had read a fascinating book called This Way to the Big Show by Dexter Fellows. So book in hand, took the subway down to Madison Square Garden and knocked on the door at 317 West 49th Street, where I knew Ringling had an office. And it was their press office. And here I was, a little punk kid with this big book by Dexter Fellows, and when the gentleman came to the door, I asked him if I could get Dexter's autograph on the book. And he said, well, we'd love that to happen, but unfortunately Dexter's no longer with us. And he kind of sized me up and he said, but would you like a job with the circus? And I said, a job with the circus? How much would it cost me? And he said, no, we'll pay you a little. And they hired me, and that was 1956, which, as you know, was the last year under the big top. And I was essentially a gopher. for the press office at Madison Square Garden in the afternoons after school.
And how long did that last, Frank?
Well, as you know, the season didn't last beyond about July 18th. And having haunted Madison Square Garden, I was also a big rodeo fan. And surprisingly enough, the New York Knickerbockers professional basketball team's office was adjacent to the Ringling press office. And they literally asked the people in the Ringling press office the following fall of 1956, who is that nice kid that was working for you last spring? And they said, oh, his name's Frank Curry. And he said, well, look, we're looking for ball boys, so could we give Frank a call? And they said, yeah, sure. So they called me up and asked me if I wanted to be the ball boy for the New York Knicks. And I was playing basketball in high school at the time and thought, oh, wow, yeah. So for the 56-57 season, I was a ball boy for the Knicks. But that summer, I went to work in upstate New York for a ranch that had a rodeo every week because my big passion was to be a performer in rodeo or circus, and I knew I couldn't walk a high wire, but I knew I might be able to be a good rodeo clown and bullfighter. So I went up there, and from that time on, I became a rodeo clown and bullfighter, getting better and better, and as I improved and got good, I went out west and worked for every major rodeo producer and stock contractor in the Rodeo Cowboys Association in all over North America for 11 years. But in 1964, during the rodeo off season, I did a little stint in the Ringling press office again for the New York run.
And 1964 was prior to the Feld's purchase of the company.
That's
They
correct.
were involved in the promotion of the company for during that time. How did you come to know Irvin Feld and become associated with the show under the Feld stewardship?
While I was rodeoing and had been doing it for a while, the first time they ask you to get up at 6 in the morning to come to a meeting or a TV show or do publicity, and you're putting the makeup on and you think, well, I'm an artist. I shouldn't be up at 6 in the morning doing this. I'm a performer. But it didn't take long for me to realize that if I could help sell a few tickets, that would make the rodeo do better and ensure that the rodeo would continue and that I would continue with it. So I got more and more involved in the promotion of the rodeo. And in 64, as I say, working in that Ringling office at the Garden, I don't know whether it was people in the Ringling office or friends of mine on Ringling, because while I was out rodeoing, if I crossed paths with Ringling, I'd go by and visit friends. And possibly Dean McMurray, the assistant general manager, somebody told Irvin about me. And in the fall of 1966, I got a call from Irvin, much like the magic call from the New York Knicks. And Irvin said that he identified himself, said he was with Super Shows and that they promoted some Ringling dates, and he'd like to meet with me at the San Moritz Hotel to make a proposal to me. So I met with him, and was, of course, charmed by his charisma, and he asked me if I would be interested in going to work for Super Shows. And I told him honestly that I was right at the peak of my rodeo career, and I had a full season starting that January till the following November. And he said, well, Frank, make me a promise. Please talk to me at the end of your next season before you make any commitments to the following year. So I didn't think anything of it because I was still passionate about my clowning and bullfighting in the rodeo, and had worked up to where I had a hell of a season, January to November. But I figured had nothing to lose by honoring my commitment to Irvin. So the following fall, I met with Irvin at the San Moritz again. And as anybody that's dealt with Irvin knows, he's a very convincing talker when he has his mind set on something. And he said, Frank, last year I offered you a job with Super Shows. Now we're going to buy Ringling Brothers. I'm going to Rome to the Coliseum with Roy Hoffheinz, and we're going to sign the papers signifying that we have purchased Ringling. So you would be working for Ringling Brothers. And that caught my attention because I'd always had that feeling in my heart for circus and Ringling in particular, and we had to discuss money. And Irvin, bless his heart, made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, and we shook hands, and that was it. I went to work for Ringling.
Okay. Describe Irvin Feld, the person. You touched on it a little bit about his persuasiveness.
About his what?
His persuasiveness.
Oh.
Describe him a little bit. The Irvin Feld that you knew.
Charismatic, and as far as persuasive.
Hang on, Frank. Irvin was.
Okay, gotcha. Irvin was, God rest his soul, he had a charisma about him, and as far as his sales ability and his persuasion ability, it was incredible. One time, I'd had it, this was after I'd been working, promoting shows, and I was in New York, I guess it was for the garden run, and I figured, I've had it, I quit, I'm just gonna stay here in New York, and I met with Irvin again at the San Moritz, and I said, Irv, I gotta go, it's over, I'm through. And his powers of persuasion, that was on a Sunday morning. Sunday night, I was getting off a plane in San Angelo, Texas, to promote the Ringling date in San Angelo, Texas. That, to me, is an example of Irvin's persuasiveness.
Okay. Describe for me, what were the early years like when you and a handful of other people were out there?
Yes, it's a good point. When I joined Ringling, there was Cotton Fenner, Al Atkinson, who was primarily an accountant for Irvin, and there was Alan and Irvin, and a wonderful man by the name of George Strongman, who was a natural-born promoter, personable, quite a good guy. And that was about it. And prior to Irvin's purchase of the show with Judge Roy Hoffheinz in the fall of '67, Ringling, after they folded in '56, went into buildings in 1957, And as far as the promotion and marketing of Ringling circuses, the country was sort of split up with various promoters. You might call them regional promoters. The Lashinskys, Martel Brett down in the southeast, H. Werner Buck out in Los Angeles, of course Irvin and Israel Feld with super shows, and then an occasional building and an occasional arena was allowed to promote, such as Paul Buck in Charlotte, and occasionally some sponsors, and that was pretty much the business model. Irvin confided in me that he calculated that by keeping the promotion in-house and the specific hands-on control of the marketing in-house, that they could gross more dollars that way and net a higher percentage of the money. But the key was taking untrained young men who had, and women later on, who had no preconceptions of how it should be done, no bad habits, and groom them to do it our way. And as I had said, I got involved in rodeo a lot in promotion, and in many of the indoor dates that we created out on the West Coast, the Pacific Indoor Rodeos, one thing we had was plenty of empty seats to utilize in lieu of a large cash budget for marketing. And I devised many ways to turn those empty seats into plus marketing dollars and exposure. And these were the kind of things that we applied to the marketing in those early years. And the key was we had to gross enough money to prove that we had a better way of doing it than allowing the regional promoters to do it. And fortunately, we had great good luck and a lot of hard work and sacrifice of young men living out of a suitcase, no home, just traveling all the time, working 24/7, year in and year out. It took a toll, fatigue and emotionally and physically, but we kept those numbers up, and it proved that Urban's business model could work, and the result is now I hear that Ringling has 180 promoters all over the world.
The people have talked about the Ringling promoters, or the system really laid the foundation for live event marketing, which you were part of. You were really at the bedrock, the beginning of that. What do you think you were doing that was so uniquely special?
What I had just mentioned was that when I was doing all those big new indoor rodeos, we may not have had a big advertising budget, but I created ways to get marketing exposure utilizing the potential empty seats that we had to show commercial entities how they could help sell their own products or services by offering the empty seats as prizes and inducements to come in and look at our product or win it or so forth, and build up the attendance, which built up the grosses. And I did that at Ringling, and as the grosses built, why then that gave us more dollars for hardcore advertising. So we built one on top of the other. We were getting more exposure through promotion, which gave us more dollars to buy hardcore advertising, and you just built on top of that, with the result that we tripled and quadrupled many of the existing dates. And in that first year, 1968, we essentially inherited pretty much the same show that had been the year before, produced by John Ringling North, because we didn't have much time to really make significant changes, and yet with that relatively same show, we were able to increase the business tremendously.
Okay. How are we doing on time?
Sydney's out here. I mean Sydney, Susanna's out here. Yeah,
Are we
and it's
on
her
time?
Yeah, we're actually a few minutes past your time.
Okay.
We can pick up another time.
We're going to pick up another time,
Yeah,
because
you got it.
this is absolutely fascinating, Frank.